Bill Maher and his panel on Friday discussed the Boko Haram kidnapping of women, and they had a great debate about terrorism and Islam.
I've heard people say that this is evil, which we would all agree, a cancer. Obama's statement was, we have not extinguished mankind's darkest impulses. There is no mention here of connecting this to the religion, which is always what I am seeking to do, because I think that's the elephant in the room, and that in the religion at large, women are seen as property, second class at best, often as property. Shouldn't that be brought to light in this debate as well?
Don't you think it is being, though? I mean,
I don't.
When I read about this horrifying group, and they're saying Allah Akbar, I mean, they're saying God is great, let's snatch this 13-year-old and sell her or kill her. It's beyond comprehension how evil this is. But when I see it described, I see it described as a radical sectarian or Islamic terrorist group. I don't see any kind of confusion about that.
And I think the point that Bill is making is that it's not just radical sectarian group.
That's right.
But that
it's
is
not just an outlier.
I'm here to
It's not a few bad apples.
That's a good translation.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's
not. This is the few bad apples argument.
Yeah, I don't think it's a few bad apples argument. I think if you have to have a clear eye at what's happening in the world around you, and Islam, as one of the great major religions, is providing a disproportionate share of radical nutbags killing people right now. That's just, I think, happening right now. So the question is, what do you do then, and how do you avoid making the wrong conclusion from that, which would be, let's have surveillance dragnets for every Muslim who walks in the United States of America, or let's not differentiate what's happening in a poor, messed up country like Nigeria and what's happening in Turkey or Indonesia. I think it's important to be clear-eyed about that, and also the sophistication about the differentiation between Muslims.
Would you say Egypt, what would you say, that's a modern Islamic?
My God, they just killed 700 people like in a day, I
don't think Islam has any monopoly on darkness and nutbags and crazy rhetoric and violence.
Kind of they do.
No, they really don't have a monopoly.
Not a monopoly, but perspective is important.
Okay.
It's not a monopoly, but it's the Titanic hitting the iceberg compared to Whitney Houston dying in her bathtub.
So let's look at how long we've had people running around making excuses to hurt other people. And Islam is a part of that tradition, but so has Christianity been.
But
slavery was defended strongly.
If this was the 14th century, I would be coming down on the Christians, because that's when they were too violent.
You wouldn't have television, so you couldn't.
Or the 18th,
okay, but that's the point, is that religions and cultures change. In the 14th century, it was the Christians, but this is the 14th century.
This is an important distinction you're making, because there sometimes is a broad indictment of religion in general. But if you look today, you do see that while the vast majority of Muslims are by no means terrorists, it does seem that the vast majority of terrorist incidents do involve some aspect of the Muslim world. You don't see a whole lot of Buddhist suicide bombers. I'm still waiting for the Koreans to show up.
All right, so first of all, let's address what Dinesh D'Souza said at the end there. That, well, look, you don't see Buddhist suicide bombers. Yeah, it's funny, except if you look over in Burma, there are many attacks of Buddhists against Muslims. There's a Muslim minority population in Burma, and the Buddhists do atrocious violence against them on a regular basis. In fact, it's so bad that it's been covered by some international news organizations within the past few years, and it is discussed in that surprise tone, because obviously the overwhelming majority of Buddhists are kind and loving, and it's more of a life philosophy than a religion in many respects, and they do kind of embrace peace a lot more than other religions do. But there is that element, specifically in Burma, where they're attacking Muslims, and there's wanton violence between the two groups, and the Muslims are the minority, so they're really victimized over there. So it's nonsense to say, well, there's no Buddhist violence. Of course there is. And then also to his point that, well, look, we're not saying all Muslims are terrorists, but if you're a terrorist, you're likely to be a Muslim. That's definitely not true, as I'll get to in a second. But to Bill Maher's point, And every time I hear Bill Maher talk about this issue, he's always 50% right and 50% wrong. And at the same token, like Ariana Huffington and the other people on the panel who are arguing the more progressive position, they're also 50% right and 50% wrong. Now, is it true when Maher talks about how oftentimes liberals will back off of criticizing Islam because they don't want to criticize what's considered a minority group and a group that has been victimized? I think that's definitely true. Like, for example, we did the story how Muslims are trying to censor a perfume ad because it shows a symbol that's similar to a Muslim symbol. Yeah, of course, liberals should speak out against that just as strongly as they would speak out against some sort of Catholic censorship, and they don't do that, and that's a problem. And I think that stems from something that is also legitimate. So it's illegitimate to not criticize whenever Islam crosses the line and goes too far, but it does stem from something that's a legitimate concern, which is oftentimes Muslims are too broadly attacked, where people aren't specific enough in their attacks, and they demonize the entire community as opposed to the people who are actually doing whatever the thing is that's a problem. And a perfect example of that is on Fox News. You had Bob Beckel coming out and saying we should ban all Muslim immigrants into the country to go to our schools because of because of the Boston bombing and what happened with 2 Muslims that are fucking Chechens. Ban all Muslims because these 2 Chechen guys are assholes. And it's that mentality, the mentality that if you're a Muslim and you do something bad, it's part of this massive conspiracy and this connection to international terrorism, and it's this big plot. But if you're a white Christian and you do something bad, well, we give you the benefit of the doubt, and we don't even talk about it. Like on Fox News, look at how they cover. If there's an attack by a Muslim, they'll cover it for a week straight and go crazy. But if there's a mass shooting by a disturbed white kid, sometimes they don't cover it at all. They'll cover some mass shootings because they happen so often, they get one mention, then they move on. But wait a second, if you're getting so worked up about all these things, and in some cases the number of people that die in the mass shootings from disturbed middle-class white kids who are in their teens, if more people are dying from that, why are you not focusing on that? How many people die more from mass shootings in the country? Well, 32,000 people die from gun violence in the U.S. every single year. Okay, now that includes suicides and everything, but still you get a scope of the idea of the problem of gun violence. Probably like 10,000 of those are murders. And they don't cover that at all to suggest, oh my God, there's a problem, we need to fix it. They sweep that under the rug and say, it's the price of freedom. But when there's an attack by a Muslim, it's, oh my God, let's ban all Muslims and this is a fucking problem and let's invade Kazakhstan tomorrow. So there's the liberals look at that and they go, well, that's fucking stupid. There's this discrepancy in how we cover these different things, and if you want to be consistent and you want to be objective about how you cover violence, then you have to do it by sheer numbers. You know, who's killing people and which group is a bigger problem based on the raw numbers. So they're both 50% right and 50% wrong. Maher is right that sometimes liberals over-defend Muslims when they are wrong. He's right about that. But he's wrong because he also does paint with too broad a brush. He does. Like when he says, it's not just a few bad apples. So what are you trying to say? A majority of Muslims in the world are in Boko Haram? That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. A majority of Muslims sympathize with Al-Qaeda? It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. Now look, understand something. Is the percentage probably higher than the percentage of Christians that would, agree with the KKK, for example? Of course. In fact, there was a poll recently, I think it was Pew from a few years ago. 9% of the international Muslim community sympathizes with Osama bin Laden and sympathize with Al-Qaeda and jihad. Yeah, that's bad. That's a problem. That 9% is a lot, especially when you're dealing with such a tremendous number of Muslims in the world. But that does still mean, keep things in perspective, that does still mean that 91% are law-abiding, fine, happy citizens that are, they're not breaking any laws and they're not doing anything wrong. And again, is it true that maybe only 1% of Christians might agree with the KKK? I've never seen a poll on that topic, but it might be true that as a percentage, more Muslims agree with the extremists in their group, but it still is true that it is a few bad apples. No matter how you do the math, it is a few bad apples. And just to give you some more examples here, there were 2 sovereign citizen terrorist attacks recently. The sovereign citizens are a right-wing terrorist group. They plan to abduct cops, shoot them, torture them. We covered 2 within the past few months, maybe past year or so. Media gave it no coverage. It was a terrorist attack, no coverage whatsoever. Or how about the white supremacist who shot people at a Jewish center recently? That's a terrorist. It was covered as a mass shooting, but it's a terrorist. Again, this is the bias that we have in America, the bias that we have in the Western world. If you're a white guy and you do a shooting, you're a lone nut. But that guy wasn't a lone nut. He was a terrorist. He was shooting for political ends. He thought, Jews run everything, man. Oh, my God, this is bad. I'm a white supremacist. WASPs are awesome, so I'm going to go kill people who I think are Jewish, who ended up not even being Jewish. That's a terrorist attack. I didn't hear Bill Maher mention that. Okay? Or how about the KKK, of course, is the classic example of right-wing Christian terrorist group. How about the abortion clinic bombers, which happens all the time? We covered a story recently about an abortion clinic bomber who escaped and did it again. But you're not talking about that like it's terrorism. Again, because you view terrorism as specifically Islamic, even though plenty of white people do it, plenty of right-wingers do it, plenty of Christians do it. In fact, 56% of the terrorist attacks in the U.S. from the 1990s and on, 56% of them were right-wing terrorist attacks. So it's a problem, and it's a big problem. And look, last thing here, we also need to make a distinction between international Muslims, okay, which again, it might be a higher percentage of people that are sympathetic to extremist views, and American Muslims. American Muslims are just as Americanized as everybody else in America, okay? That's not me saying that. That's the poll saying that. So, for example, there was a poll done, I believe, by Gallup, where they asked the question, is it ever okay to kill civilians? Is it ever okay to do harm to or kill civilians? What group had the highest percentage of people that said it's never okay to hurt civilians? American Muslims. In other words, even my group, the non-religious people, the atheists. We were number 2, I believe, but it was the American Muslims who had the highest percentage of people that said violence against civilians is never okay. And then the worst were, I think, Catholics and WASPs, Protestants. So it's so funny that, you know, and that's the point, man. Look, Bill Maher is right that all religion is stupid, all religion is wrong. There's a problem with dogma when you just buy into this ridiculous belief system without any evidence. I'm with him 100% on that, and I go after all religions all the time, okay? But the problem with what he's saying is that he really is seeing only what he wants to see. It's confirmation bias. So what he's doing is he's saying, no, it has to be that, you know, not all Muslims are terrorists, but if it's terrorism, it has to be a Muslim. No, that's not the case. There's a lot more right-wing terrorism in the U.S. There's plenty of Christian terrorism, as I just covered right here for you. And it's time to admit and acknowledge that, yes, we're all going to disagree with and go after Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda and talk about how they're stupid and wrong and dumb. And nobody disagrees with you, Bill. We all agree. And I agree with you that it's connected to the religion. But also, don't pretend like you're doing that for whatever reason, Christians are these angels that are much more evolved. Maybe as a percentage, they're a tiny, tiny bit more evolved, but not that much. They're pretty fucking bad too.